Ah, so bright. No, it's a 3D modeling app. I at one point learned how to use kind of ish, but then have forgotten all of it. So, hold on, I'm trying to set up so you guys get some music because I'm listening to music right now. But you don't get to listen to the music I'm listening to. Spotify. Because the music I'm listening to is copywritten. Little bitches. So I'm trying to set it up so it plays through this other computer. That's the wrong headphone. Alright. Let's see here. Log out. You would think I would have all this ready by now. Fuck! I said blinder, didn't I? Fuck me. Listen. It's been a long day. It's been a long years. Yeah, a couple of years. Thank you for catching that, though. Motherfucker, just let me log into my Spotify. I would like to provide music. Copy Spotify. Paste login. Alright. And you guys are gonna have to tell me if it's too loud or anything. Because I will not be able to tell. Is it not coming through? Is it not coming through at all? Oh, I know why it's not coming through. I'm dumb. Properties. There we go. Is that too loud? Is that good? Hopefully it's good. Is good. It's good. Surveillance final tonight. Alright, I regret reading my general chat. So, Blender. We're gonna learn it. Are you ready? This is the same guy I did a tutorial, like, I watched his tutorial and shit a few years back, learning Blender. So I thought it'd be nice to revisit the same guy again. He does do a lot of ad reads for his own business. But, yes, the Blender guru.
Is Blender. Open source 3D software that can be used to make animations, visual effects, game assets, or practically anything 3D. And best of all, it's 100% free and it always will be.
I love that
If you've
Twitch
never
says
used
I
it
have
before,
one
but
viewer
you want to learn it,
when I know
well,
I
then
at
you're
least
in
have
the right
3
place.
individual.
This is a tutorial for complete beginners. I've
then
been using
YouTube.
Blender for 20 years, so I'm going to show you how to use all of its core features.
Every
And by the
Blender,
end,
yeah.
you'll finish with not only the confidence to start your own projects, but with your very own donut animation. And I know this looks complex, but I promise you it's achievable for a complete beginner. And I say that with confidence because many already have. This is actually the 4th version of this tutorial. I made the first donut tutorial back in 2016, and I've been remaking it every few years to keep up with Blender's development. In that time, millions of people, just like yourself,
you guys
have
are
gone
over
from having
here
never
towards the
used 3D
camera.
to
The
successfully
tutorial
making
is
their
over
own
here,
donuts.
and then
One
Blender
artist
is
even
on the
snuck
big
his
screen
into
right
a
here.
little film called
So,
Everything
I'll be looking
Everywhere
away
All
from
at
you
Once.
guys a lot. I mean, I
Very
don't want to
clever.
look at you anyways.
So, if you're ready to take your first steps in 3D, hit
talks
the
a
subscribe
lot.
button and let's begin. First, go to blender.org/download or just click the link in the description.
Or go to Steam.
Then, obviously, you got to hit the big download button.
Oh,
Once
fuck, I'm
downloaded
not
on
on the right
Windows,
computer.
double click it and then just go through the install steps. But if you're on a Mac, just drag it into the applications folder.
This is your brain when you're struggling.
No. No free ads.
Under shortcut and open it. Then once it's open, just click anywhere off the splash screen to close it, and welcome to the wonderful world of 3D. First tip, do not get overwhelmed. If you go
Too late.
clicking around, you might find lots of buttons and some of them with very scary
I've had
names,
Blender on
and
my
it can all get
computer
very overwhelming very quickly.
since,
The
like,
thing you need to
high
know is
school.
Blender can do a lot of things, which means it has a lot of tools, but you don't need to know every
I
tool
don't
in
know
order to
like
do what
shit
you want to do.
still.
If you're familiar with the 80-20 rule, there's really only 20%
good night, buddy.
of Blender's features that you end up using 80% of the time. And that's what I'm planning to teach you in this tutorial series. So stay with me and you should be fine. We'll start making the donut in the next video. In this one, we're just going to look at the interface and I'm going to show you some of the basic navigation. So for starters, this view, this window right here is your 3D viewport, and it's where you'll spend probably 90% of your time, because it is the 3D world. So you can see that we have 3 objects here. We've got a camera, we've got a cube, and we've got
Is
a lamp.
video audio
And
too
when we
loud, by the
click
way?
on it, you can see it's selected because it has the yellow outline. So let's delete the default cube, of course, and replace it with something else. So we could do that by going up to the Add menu up here, or by remembering the hotkey, which is Shift A. So Shift A for Add.
I ain't
So
remembering
usually the
shit.
one you're looking for is underneath Mesh. So these are called your primitives, and it's what you use to start something when
Monkey.
you're looking to make an object. Like if you're going to make a chair, you might start with a cylinder as the
Monkey.
chair leg and then build out from there. But the one I'm sure you're all very curious, you want to click it, it's the monkey. So let's just click the monkey. Why does Blender have a monkey? Well, fun fact, every 3D software has its own little random complex object because it's useful to test things like shaders or complexities of scenes. So 3ds Max has the Utah teapot, Houdini has the toy, and I think Pig's head. Blender has the monkey, and it's actually called the Suzanne monkey head, which you can see in the top left there, named after the orangutan from the film Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. Random piece of trivia. So let's get a better look at it. And to that we need to orbit, which you can do by on your mouse there, your scroll wheel, that is called your middle mouse button. If you push that in and then drag, it's because you realize you don't have a mouse. How are you going to orbit around? First of all, probably a good idea to get a mouse for 3D work. It will come in handy. But in a pinch, you can get by without it just by up here in the top right-hand corner, this little gray circle, anywhere in the gray section. If you just left-click, drag on that, that will do the exact same thing. Or if you want, you can go to Edit Preferences, and then underneath Input, there's Emulate 3-button mouse. And that means that if you hold down Alt and then left-click, drag, that will do the exact same thing. Also, whilst you are in User Preferences, you might want to go to Interface, and you've got Resolution Scale. If you're on a 4K monitor, you might find that your menus and buttons are really small, and you kind of have to like squint in to see it. So personally, I like to keep my 4K monitor around about 1.5. Since this is a tutorial, I'll make it nice and big so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so that's orbiting around with the middle mouse button. If we want to zoom in, we can do that just by scrolling in and out. We could also do it by going up to the magnifying glass tool there, and then just left-click, dragging, and then moving the mouse back and forth. That does the same thing. Or you could hold down Control and then middle mouse button, and that will do a smooth zoom as well. Okay, so one thing you might notice looking at this is that it's not very pretty, right? It's just kind of got this flat, bland,
wanna
gray
set 'em
lighting
on
over
fire.
everything. And that's because this state right now is called viewport shading. And it's kind of a lightweight, optimized way to view the scene just as you're building it. But if you want to create a final pretty image, that's called rendering. And you can actually switch into rendered mode by going up here into the top right-hand corner. You can see we're currently in the viewport shading mode. If we go 2 across, you should see.
I don't know
render
if
view.
I'm
So if we
allowed
click
to do
that,
this, by the
your
way.
computer might stall for a quick second whilst it loads it in.
Like,
You
I
can see
feel
it's
like
now
this
different.
is
We
kind
have
of
directional
reaction
light,
content.
a shadow cast across the monkey. So it's now currently being lit by this lamp up here. So
Wait, what
if
do
I
you
wanted to, zoom in on that lamp there and just kind of like move it around, you can see it's kind of hard to focus.
Oh,
Like, it's always
you
exactly
just click
not
this.
in the right view. And that's because we are centered on our monkey right now. We need to change the focus. We need to pan to something else. So we could do that one of 2 ways. One, if you're on a
broke
laptop, you can
Blender.
use the little move tool there. That will do that. Or everyone else,
clicked
shift,
one button.
middle
Okay,
mouse,
never
click,
mind.
drag,
It
and that will
works.
do the same thing. So
Fine.
middle mouse is for
Everything's fine.
orbiting, shift middle mouse is for pan to change your view to something else. Okay, so I want to move my light because it's too moody. I want to be able to see the monkey's face there. So to move an object, you could do it one of 2 ways. One, you could go over to the left-hand corner here and you've got the move tool. When you click that, you can see that the selected object, the lamp, has this this gizmo, it's called, with these axes on it. And if I just clicked and dragged on any of those arrows there, you can see I can move it along any of those axes. I can also just click on that white circle there, and that will just freehand drag it depending on my view. But it's kind of tedious. Every time you want to move something, you have to like go to that tool and then find the arrows and yada yada. So actually, most people in Blender prefer to use the hotkeys. So we just keep it in the default selection state here, and instead remember the hotkey, which is G for grab. Now, I've just tapped the key, and you'll notice as I move my cursor,
What?
it's now attached to my cursor. It's not, my cursor isn't even actually close to it. In fact, my cursor could be on the other side of the screen, and I could tap G, and it will move it. And at first, this is kind of awkward. You're like, why is it working this way? But once you get used to it, you realize it's actually handy, because you don't have to spend all this time like navigating your cursor to something just so that you can move it. Your cursor could be over here, and then just tap
I
it, and you
love
move it. So
this.
whilst you're in this move state, if you want to
How did I
cancel a
not know
movement, you can do
about
one of 2
this?
ways. You could just hit escape, or you could right-click. Then if you want to confirm a movement, like say I want to move my lamp here, and I like the movement, I could just do a single
Where is
left
she?
click. So again, if I want to cancel
Where
something,
is she,
right-click, I want to
monkey?
confirm the movement.
You
Let's
know.
say I wanted to move it along an axis, like, I like these arrows here, and I want to be able to move it on just a specific axis. Well, I can do that whilst
Wait,
I'm
no.
in that grab state as
There,
well.
that's
So
the
after I hit
dramatic
the G
lighting.
key to grab it, I can then tap the letter of the
Where
axis
is
that
she,
I want to move
monkey?
it on. So if you don't know, in the real world and in
Where
Photoshop,
is
there
she?
are 3 axes because there's 3 dimensions. There's the X axis, which I can move by hitting the X key, the Y axis to move it back and forth along the Y axis with the Y key, or the Z axis to move it up and down on the Z axis. So you can remember those letters, the X, Y, and Z. Or the method that I actually prefer to use is whilst in that G state, if you just hold down the middle mouse
I
button
am,
and
like,
then pull out, you can
not
see you get this like gray line that pulls out from the center. And then if you just drag out and move around,
Wait, what?
those letters, the X, Y, and Z. Or the method that I actually prefer to use is whilst you're in that G state, if you just hold down the middle mouse button and then pull out, you can see you get this like gray line that pulls out from the center.
Wait,
and
how
then if
did
you just
I-
drag out and move around, it will snap it to the nearest axis. Which again is maybe
How-
that boring way to work, but it's actually really handy because
Wait.
you don't have to think of the letter and locate it on your keyboard.
I've already
I can just tap G to
forgotten.
move it, and then
Oh,
middle
G.
mouse drag out, and then just find that exact axis that I'm looking for. And so it's very fast to just quickly move the lamp exactly where I want it. By the way, if you're finding it hard to remember all of the keyboard shortcuts that I've mentioned, I've actually put together a PDF, a cheat sheet of Blender's most common hotkeys, and you can download that by clicking the link in the description. So you could print it out, or you could just have it on a separate monitor while you work. Also, if you are from another 3D software package, you might notice that Blender's hotkeys are different than what you are used to. So if you actually go to Preferences, just for those people that are from other softwares, if you change the key map to industry compatible, you'll find that these shortcuts are probably more in line with what you remember from other software. I'll also put a link to a cheat sheet that is just for the industry compatible key maps that somebody else put together. I've got nothing to do with it, but I'll put that link there so you can check it out as well. For the rest of the tutorial series, I'm going to use Blender's hotkeys. Just keep that in mind. Now let's say, as I am moving around here, I'm like, oh, this looks really good. I've got some nice Rembrandt lighting across the monkey's face. I want to take a photo. I want to take a nice, pretty image of this and post it on socials for clout, right? Well, I could take a screenshot of it, but that would be silly because it's got all these lines all over. It's all noisy, right? We don't like it. The way you take a photo, a pretty image in Blender, is to do a render. So you can do that one of 2 ways, by going up to render and hitting render image, or remembering the hotkey, which says next to it F12.
Verizon and AT&T announced price hikes, a total of 10.
So F12. Ooh. That's where the camera is. The camera is facing there. Commercial's still gone. So we're just gonna click around until we find stuff. Show metadata. Oh, that's cool. Cool. Wait, wait, F12. Okay. And then I guess this will be on the other screen for now. But if I move the camera. No, it doesn't actively move the render. Okay. Some commercial done? Yeah, cool.
View of the camera. So this is our camera over here, and it's looking from this angle. Render, see a different view than what we have here, right? So here I've got a nice view of the monkey's face, but there is a different view. And the reason for that is when you do a render, it's not rendering from the view that you're looking at currently. It's always going to render from the point of view of the camera. So this is our camera over here, and it's looking from this angle. And we can actually look through the camera by just clicking the little camera icon there, or by remembering the hotkey, which is number pad 0. So how do we move the camera? Well, Blender's a little awkward, maybe a little different to other software packages, but you're supposed to like hit G to move it, and then like middle mouse to zoom in and out. And then if you want to like move it along an axis, I guess G and then X. You could do that, but actually what a lot of users prefer, especially those from other software packages, is if you've got your camera selected, which by the way, I haven't mentioned this, but up here, this is your outliner. It's kind of an inventory of every item that you've got in your scene. Okay, so with the camera there selected, if I hit N is to bring up the properties, N for properties for whatever reason, and then go to view, there's a little box there that just says lock to camera to view. So now, with that active, if I just use the same keyboard shortcuts as before, middle mouse button to orbit it around, shift middle mouse to drag it, you can see that the camera is moving with it. So essentially the view, I can set it up exactly as I want, then hit N again, and then I can disable that. And then now as I pull out, you can see the camera will stay exactly where it was, and I could do a lovely, pretty render. But this is too simple. If we post this on the internet, people are bound to make fun of us. Imagine that. Well, we could give it some color, right? So with our monkey head selected, we can go over here to the properties. So this property section is where you might spend the other, I don't know, another 5 to 8%. I'm not getting too exact there. You might spend another 5% of your time in this section, but it's where all of the properties for things are in place. So for example, you've got like the render properties, like the size of the image that you're saving something as is defined there. And some of these properties will stay here no matter what is selected, but others are selection dependent. So you can see actually if I click the camera there, you can see I get a little camera tab at the bottom. But if I select my monkey, you'll see the camera tab disappears. But instead I have some other ones that appear. So one that we might want to change is underneath material, and this will enable us to add a material, change the color to something else, essentially. So underneath here, where it's got new, I'm just going to hit new. And then you've got a bunch of options, very confusing. Ooh, IOR, subsurface. Again, don't worry about it. We'll get to all of that later on. The one that defines the color is the base color. So if I do a single left click on that white box there, I can then change this color to whatever I want. I could make it an odd, creepy, skin-toned monkey head, right? Like that, and do a render. Okay, so all right, it's better, but still, it's too simple. I think people will think we haven't put enough effort into this masterpiece. So let's add another object. Let's give the monkey a hat. So if we want to add another object, how do we do it?
Wait. Oh.
No, we could go to the add menu, like I mentioned before, or the hotkey Shift A. So what sort of hat do we want to add? We could do a boxy hat. Let's do a party hat with a cone. So once we've added that object, you can see it's just plopped it straight in the center, intersecting our monkey. So we need to move it. We could grab it with the G key. So it's now moving it just on our cursor there. I don't want to move it just freehand though, because I like the position, but I just want to move it up. So I'm going to hit Z.
It was F. No. C. No. What did I do? What is this? C. X. Ooh, rendered. No. V. Q. R. W. S. That was an A. D. F. G. T. Y. H. B. What is B?
Z to move it E. So that object, you can see it's just do we want to add? We could go to the add menu, like I mentioned before, or the hotkey Shift A.
Fuck.
So what sort of hat do we want to add? We could do a boxy hat. Let's do a party hat with a cone. So once we've added that object, you can see it's just plopped it straight in the center, intersecting our monkey. So we need to move it. We can grab it with the G key. So it's now moving it just on our cursor there. I don't want to move it just freehand though, because I like the position, but I just want to move it up. So I'm going to hit Z to move it along the Z axis. Right, I like it there. So once I like the placement, I'm just going to do a single left click. Okay, great. But too big. See, need to learn another tool, which is scale. So we could go to the scale tool there, and then we get this familiar little axes there. But again, most people prefer to remember the hotkey, which for scale is just S. So S to scale.
Wait, where's my bar? Wait, where's my bar? Don't tell me, did I accidentally press a hotkey to get rid of it? Whoa. Angel monkey. T. Ah, T. Shink. No. Well, hold up. No. Wait, no. Wait, how do I? Okay. Thinner. Right. Thinner. Oh, slurp that shit. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's kind of in his head, isn't it? Just, what happens if I... Oh. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and raise it a little. Beautiful. Well, angelic monkey. Maybe rotate it a little. Like that. Why can't I... Can't rotate it how I want. What is this? Transform. You know what I want. I want rotate. I want to rotate it a little bit this way. Not enough. A little bit more. Beautiful. Angelic monkey. Skin tone need change. Make them pink. And we'll give no metallic. What is this? Oh. And a little bit of that, I guess. And roughness. You're a rough monkey. And then What else can I do? Sheen? Nah. Well, no. Wait, emission. Red. Oh my. Oh my. Let's give him a golden glow. Right. What is this? Cannot like go half? Point 0.05. There we go. Beautiful. Well, just a bit of a piss glow on him, right? And then with this, what we'll do is we'll make it a little yellow, right? And then add another emission. We get fully piss glow. Okay. Yes, piss glow. What a beautiful boy. We gotta move the light, Avi. Right? We gotta G. Tell me a scary story, monkey. Can I actually hold up? Wait. Hold on. No. Sure, good enough. Camera. Cuts off his halo. Oh, beauty. Kind of ish, maybe. Nope, that's cap lock. Whoops. Angelic monkey. Angelic monkey. No more camera. I forgot I wanted to add some metallic to it. Does that fuck it up at all? No, actually, not really. Alright, and then how did I... It was F12. See, I'm remembering things. Look at that beautiful monkey. Oh, you don't get to see the beautiful monkey. I just realized. But monkey.
So resizing that, okay, that's pretty good. Let's move it down again, so G and Z. Okay, all right, but yeah, let's say we want to make it a little taller. Okay, so we could scale it along just the Z axis. So S and then Z, whoops, S, Z, there we go. And it's now making it a tall party hat. Scale it down. There we go. Ha, look at that. A very bland party if it's grayless. Let's give it another material, an exciting color, a vibrant aqua color. Why not? Give that a render by hitting F12. Okay,
See,
camera
so
is
good.
in the wrong position, so let's go to camera view mode.
So
It's
far
not at
ahead.
0. I'm going to select my camera, and rather than dabbling with that little
I don't
thing
even
I had before, I'm
need
going to
him
G
at
and
this
middle mouse,
point.
just tap it once.
can make
As I
it
said, it's a
go
little
back.
awkward. Blender's the way it handles with the camera. But anyway, just move that out, and then I got to rotate it. All right, so I'm going to rotate. So with the camera selected, tap R and middle mouse, and it's now kind of like freehand rotating around. So I'll just move it up slightly. There we go. Okay, this is just a fool around session. So don't worry if you're making mistakes. We'll get to actual practical building stuff in the next part. I'm just trying to find ways to throw in these like fundamental tools. Rotate, right? The monkey's head is just, he needs to look dead on at the camera, and currently he's off. Ah, what an excuse to use the rotate tool. So you could enable the rotate tool, right? The familiar axes there. You could click and rotate it around like that. Again, remember the hotkey, which is R to rotate, right? So it's now just freehand rotating on my cursor. Remember the axes, as I mentioned before, can be used for any mode. So the X axis will rotate back and forth, the Y axis, tilt it, or Z, there we go, to turn it towards the camera. Just a little bit, right? And there you go, F12. And we've done it. Let's save it. Let's upload it to ArtStation, and then just wait for the recruiters, essentially. All right, let's start a new scene so that we can get ready for part 2, where we're going to actually start building our donut and learning some of the more.
We're gonna save the angelic monkey. We're gonna save him. He will now be angelic monkey. Beauty. Oh, that's a file directory. I was trying to name it. I'm so dumb. Can I not name it? Permission to not. This is my computer. What do you? What? Wait. Oh. Oh, I'm dumb. I'm so dumb. Okay. Jellic monkey. 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 Just gonna keep saying it. Is there still music playing? Yeah, there is. Good. Game board, no. Boop, boop, boop. Pretty things. Let's upload a picture of the monkey to Pretty Things. Because he belongs. He belongs to be praised. Where is view? Medium icons. That works. Monkey. No context, just monkey. I've been invited to Repo, but I feel committed.
Core features of Blender. Now we know how Blender functions. Let's start building that donut. So, as before, let's, well, first of all, just to repeat, make sure you're working with a new scene. Right. Completely new scene. Don't want any remaining monkey heads lying around. Let's begin fresh slate, and let's delete our default cube, just with the delete key, and let's replace it with a new object. You might remember the hotkey for that is Shift.
Wait. How did he make a new project?
Just to repeat, make sure you're working with a new scene.
Wait.
Completely new scene. Don't want any remaining monkey heads lying around.
Oh, I'm fucking
Let's begin
blind.
fresh slate, and let's delete our default cube, just with the delete key, and let's replace it with a new object. You might remember the hotkey for that is Shift A. And as I mentioned before, you usually want what is underneath mesh, because these are your primitives. So we want to start with something that most resembles what it is we're building. If it was a house, you might start with a cube. If it was a vase, you might start with a cylinder. In our case, we want the donut-shaped one, although mathematicians call it a torus for some reason. So let's add that. Now, if I zoom in by scrolling up, you can see we have something resembling a donut. It looks like a pretty weak-looking donut, you know, very flimsy. Looks like the donut before it's cooked when they just drop it into the vat and it's just this little wispy thing. So, immediately, after you do some actions in Blender, you have options to change it. And the options are hidden down here in the bottom left-hand corner. You see a little box. And if you click that box, you see options. And look, we can change the dimensions of our torus. Now, something to note is that these options in Blender only appear immediately after you have done that action. If you do another action, like, say, deselect your torus by mistake, it's gone, right? Because Blender has assumed you have moved on. You've accepted the state of your donut, and this is the one you want, right? Now, if you haven't done anything drastic or changed this object in some severe way, you can temporarily bring it back by hitting F9. I never actually remember that hotkey. I just remember that immediately after I have added an object, if I want to tweak it, now's my chance before I move on to something else. Okay, so we could change, the size of it here. We can also change the resolution. I'll use the term resolution loosely to make it higher or lower fidelity.
This is a weird
and a mistake
looking donut.
that a lot of beginners make, and I say this because this was the exact mistake I made way back in 2003 when I started learning Blender, is they go, well, I need a realistic looking donut, so I guess I need to go really high resolution. I remember my first project, one of my first projects was for a high school film project, and I wanted to have a close-up of a face. Didn't realize faces were going to be difficult, but I went really high poly, and then it was just an absolute nightmare to work with. So the reason you don't want this is that, for starters, things that are high poly are very slow to render, and they're very hard to work with if you want to tweak the shape of it. But also, as you learn and you grow with 3D, you'll discover that it is a lot easier to add resolution to something later on, but it's very difficult to take it away if you've already built it into it and you don't need it. So, long way to say, what we actually want is to have as few polys, these are called polys, as you can get away with. So I'm going to go with 32 major and 12 minor. And don't worry that it looks all jagged, because we will fix that in a moment. Now, the major and minor, this is really up to you, but I find that something that looks, it's kind of chunky, like a fat donut, just looks really delicious. So I'm going with something around about this size, okay? And once I'm happy with this, once I'm ready to click off, I click off, the options are gone, and this is it. This is the donut that I am now working with. So how do we make this look higher?
Why is this fat?
Fat donut? Just
12.39. Why is this? Why is it fatter? What? Why is it fatter when it's? Why is it? What do you say it was? F9? Yeah. F9. Why is it fatter? Oh, I see. Bloom, 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 bloom. Sorry. We'll get back to it. Sorry. Just we'll listen to him and do 32, eh? Right? No, 39, sorry. We'll do a nice, not 139. No. 39. We'll do 39. Beautiful. Look at it. Look at it. It's basically already done.
This looks really delicious, so I'm going with something around about this size, okay? And once I'm happy with this, once I'm ready to click off, I click off, the options are gone, and this is it. This is the donut that I am now working with. So how do we make this look higher resolution, less jagged? Well, one way is to use smooth shading. So if you right-click with your object selected, go to Shade Smooth. And look at that, this is immediately better. Without getting too technical, this is kind of a fakery. It's sort of like the shader is telling the renderer that this is a really high poly dense mesh when it really isn't. It's just basically kind of like averaging out faces. And anyway, it's very technical, but basically it's not going to add anything to your render time, but it's going to look smoother. And so this is generally what you want for something that is smooth and organic looking like we want. If you were rendering like architectural or like hard surfaces, like later on we're going to put this on a counter, then the object would obviously want to be flat. But in our case, we're just going to use Shade Smooth. But you might notice that looking at this, especially if you go side on, that you've got this sort of jagged shape around here, right? So the silhouette is really breaking that illusion that this is a high poly or a smooth looking donut. But thankfully, rather than adding all of that complex density into the mesh itself and then making it hard to remove later on, there's another way through modifiers. So if we go over here to our properties, right, this very confusing, lots of option looking properties, click on the wrench, and this is the section called modifiers. And this is one of those object dependent things. So if you've got your camera selected, you won't see it. So it's only when you've got actual meshes that you might see this modifier here. So it's much easier to explain if we just add one. So up here, add modifier, and you've got a range of options here that can do a whole number of things. The one that we're looking for is
you set
generate,
stuff on fire.
and it is called subdivision surface. And it is a really common modifier that you use all the time. In fact, it's so common, it's actually, you can just immediately add it to any object just by hitting Control 1. But don't do that because we've already got it, so there. Now, some of you might have just discovered that your donut has disappeared. If that is the case, you need to go to Edit, Preferences, and then underneath Viewport, where it's got Subdivision at the very bottom, disable GPU subdivision. That will then make the subdivision perform on your CPU instead of your GPU, which is maybe non-existent or not performing, whatever. But disable that and it should appear. But if it's already working for you, don't disable it. Keep it going because GPU will be faster. So what exactly is this doing? Well, it's a lot easier to explain if we look at the shade flat mode, because we're not being tricked by the smooth shading there. If I set this levels viewport to 0, this is our original mesh. This is before we add the subsurface, essentially. When we increase this, you can see that it is adding resolution to our mesh. And the more I increase this viewport levels here, the finer and finer that detail becomes. So to explain, because this is such a very, very common modifier, it's kind of important to understand how it's working. You can see that this is these squares here, these are called faces, by the way. And for each one of these faces here, as I add a level, you can see it's becoming 4 faces, right? And then now if I zoomed in on this one face here, if I do another level, that's now become 4 faces. And then if I zoom in again, it's now become 4 faces. So it's exponentially adding detail. And you might also know that it is smoothing it out as well. Like this jagged edge that we've got here, you can see now becomes smoother. So to quickly visualize that, if I just draw it, like imagine you've got like a 90-degree corner, right? Like this. If you add a subsurf modifier, what it's going to do is it's going to add a point here, right? Because this is the extra detail. It's also going to take that point there and it's going to average it out. It's going to average it out between these points. And it's going to create another one there, another one there. So you go then from having that really hard corner there to having something that looks a lot smoother. So it's going to take a point and it's also going to change it to make it look smoother, generally speaking. So there we go. So now as I increase this, you can see it's getting smoother and smoother. Now, the reason there are 2 options here, you've got levels viewport and levels render. So reminder, this gray area that we operate in is called our viewport. The render is the pretty version. So as an example, you can see if I just turned it off for the viewport, it looks very jagged. But then for my render, if I increase that to 3, if I do my render, which you can go up there and render image, or remember the hotkey F12, you can see that that donut is now smooth, but I go back and you can see it's jagged. So the viewport, you want to generally keep it lightweight, and then the render time, that's where you want to get a really nice looking pretty image. So you want to often have 2 different levels. In our case though, I don't really think we need to go beyond 1, even for our final pretty image, because this with shade smoothing turned on is good enough. And we're going to be adding more to the scene later on, so we don't want to make it too complex. So this is actually pretty good. Okay, so we have a perfect donut, and that's the problem. It's too perfect. You could spend decades trying to develop a machine in the real world that made a donut this perfect, and you never would. This is so mathematically precise that the eye will always see this as looking fake. So that's actually a problem you learn pretty quickly in 3D, that things that are too perfect just look fake. So you have to spend time making things look misshapen and adding variation there, like you see in the real world, because your eye expects to see it. So
like
how do we do that? How do we make this donut look a little more lumpy and interesting? I do that by changing the mesh itself. So this mode that we are in right now, where we can click on different objects, is called object mode. And I know that because in the top left-hand corner, you can see we are in object mode. But if I click the drop down, you can see I get a number of other options here. And these options, again, will change depending on the object you've got selected. If I've got a lamp, my little light there selected, you can see I've only got object mode. My camera, I've only got object mode. But a mesh will give you extra options here. So let's enter into edit mode. Ooh. Right, now you can see our object has become something that looks weird. It's got a bunch of little points on it with lines and very technical. Well, That's because this is actually what the mesh is made up of. These little points here, which you can click on just by selecting, are called your vertices. The singular term is called vertex. I never say that. I like to just call all of them vertices, regardless of whether it's one or two, just because you always get some comments that go, actually, it's called vertex if it is singular. Anyway, so these are called your vertices, and if you have 2 of them joined by a line, that is called an edge, and if you have 4 of them forming a face, then it's called a face. So with these, I can quickly change the shape of my object by using the same hotkeys as before. And if I want to move this, then I would simply tap G, right? And you can see it's now attached to my cursor. And then if I want to confirm its movement, I just do a single left click, and there it is. Now, if I go back into object mode, like that, you can see that my mesh has changed, okay? And by the way, the hotkey for jumping in and out of object and edit mode is just tab. Okay, so you can see it's just toggling between those 2 modes because it's so common that you want to just quickly change things that it's just easily accessible by that. Now, this is okay, right? But you can see it's got like some artifacting. It's not the greatest lump, right? So how do we make it look a little more natural? Well, I mean, you could, you move one, drag it out, okay, click, and then I move, the next one next to it, right? I'll move that out, and then I'll move this one out a little bit, and then I move this one. And it's like, okay, well now I've got the thing, but it took me like 5 actions. Ridiculous, right? No one wants to do that. No one's got time for that. Thankfully, there is a tool in Blender just for this, and it's called proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your toolbar. So if you enable that, now if I hit G and I move it out, you'll see I get a little ring around my cursor there, and that is now changing the mesh around it. Now, a lot of people in my previous tutorials were like, I don't see what's going on. You have to have something selected first, and then when you hit G, you will see that little.
Wait, where? I don't see that. Where's the proportional whatever the fuck? Where are you at? This? No. That's not it. Oh, that's cool. Oh. Oh. It's sphere. That did nothing.
Little circle of influence. Okay, now this circle of influence, if I scroll down, if I scroll up, you can see it's shrinking its circle of influence. And if I scroll down, it is expanding its influence. So it's only going to affect what is in that that ring there, okay? If you are on, if you don't have a mouse with a scroll wheel, you can also change the influence by using page up and page down. And if you don't have page up or page down because you're on a Mac keyboard, then what you would have to do is go to key map and then change your page up and page down to something else just so that you could get around that. But guys, you gotta get a mouse. Get a mouse with a scroll wheel. I think they're, I don't know, 50 cents or just in the nearest landfill somewhere. Get a mouse because it's gonna make your life in 3D a lot easier. Okay, so with this, I can now make quick work of lumpy shapes, okay? So I just drag that out, okay? I've got a little lumpy shape there. Maybe I go down here and I pull this up just by hitting G, moving it up, okay? So already this is looking a little more natural, right? Because even if we were making a stylized world for a Pixar movie or something like that, you can't have just a spherical looking donut. Sorry, spherical. Round looking circular donut because it just, your eye will see it as fake. So very quickly, I'm able to add a little bit of variation to the donut. Just all around it, just a little bit over here. And you can see that I am just changing my circle of influence depending on what size of a lump I want to make. So if I just want to make like a little bit that sticks out, I can make a small circle just by scrolling up like that. And you just want to do that until you get something that looks a little more natural. I might want to make the inner part as well. We just drag that in with a smaller circle, and that's pretty good. Let's just have a look from the top. I might actually just drag that out, make it a little bit more like that. But there you go. That's pretty good for a donut. It's still kind of simple. It's not too detailed, but it's got just enough variation in it that it's more interesting to look at. Oh, one more thing, forgot to mention. Go back into edit mode with tab. Donuts, when they're sitting in the little vat thing, right, they're only like half submerged, so then they have to be flipped. But it means that the bit that's nearest to the surface is getting less heat. So essentially what I'm saying is the bit that's around the donut, the circumference of it is usually a little bit flatter. So donuts aren't like perfectly round all the way around. They're usually a little bit flatter. So what I want to do is I want to select these vertices along here, and then I want to shrink them. Now I could go around one by one like this, which is actually what I used to do when I was learning Blender pre-YouTube days, and there was no tutorials. I would do this if I wanted to select this. silly because there's a function, a tool for that, and it is edge select. So if you hold down Alt on your keyboard and then do a single left click on not the points, but on the edge, like this little line here, you can see it's selected all the way around. So it's anything that's
Cat
connected
smells
along
like
that line
shit.
is
And
now
I don't know
selected.
why, dude.
So if I want to shrink
wipe
this,
your
right,
ass.
what would I do? Well, I mean, yeah, you could like move it around, right? We want to shrink it. We want to change the scale of it. So we would use the hotkey S for scale. So S, and I'm going to scale that in. And I actually don't want proportional editing. So I'm going to turn that off and now scale in and just make it a little bit flatter. And there you go. See, it just feels a little bit more natural, doesn't it? It looks a little bit closer to what a donut looks like. And by the way, don't worry if yours doesn't look exactly like this, like your lump is a little bit off. Like some people get a little bit too precious with the tutorial. I gotta match exactly everything I do. Like I'm just working on the fly as well. So just make what you think looks good. Maybe you think this is not misshapen enough and you want to add more, go for it, because it might actually turn out better than what mine is. Now, before we move to the next part, how to save. How to save. Blender, very, very easy. You just go save as, and you just get one file. It's called .blend. Very literal file extension. Really pushing the limits of what a file extension can be. That's almost a word, Blender. Anyway, .blend, and that's it. And then next time you open it up, it's exactly like it. It's not like ZBrush where you got like 4 or 5 different ways to save a project or an object or a tool or a... Hate ZBrush. Okay, that's how you save. Now, also, finally, I would say, if you need help, because I know if you're stuck and then you leave a YouTube comment, you might not get a reply. If you want immediate help, I've got a Discord. So I'll put the link below. So there's like a little channel in there where you can just ask for specific donut help. So if you're having issues, feel free to jump into that. And also, guys, don't beat yourself up. Like 3D is definitely has like a steep-ish learning curve. So you're in that steep slope right now, and it's really common. Like a lot of this stuff is very foreign. 3D is very unique. It's very different to a lot of 2D tools. But don't give up. Like it's definitely achievable to learn and self-learn at home. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to pay for a tutor. It's really easy to get help online. Nowadays with it. So if you're ready to jump to the next part after you've saved your blend file, go ahead, click here, and I will see you there. Technology that is going to expand the uses for 3D exponentially. Well, you would if you were on my free news from the world of news stories.
Don't care.
Donut Show, where we make sad little donuts that we cannot eat. This is where we finished up at the end of part 1. We've got our nice looking donut, and now we're going to make that nice icing, which looks complex, but is actually fairly simple. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want to add an object, you go Shift A, right? And then you start with something that resembles what you're trying to create. But we already have something that resembles the exact shape we want to create. It's the donut, because we want the icing around the donut. So let's just reuse this information. So we can do that by duplicating the object. If you want to for it, you just go Object, and you find it here, where it says Shift D. So Shift D. Now, when you hit that, you are in a placement state, essentially. Like it's duplicated, and it's now saying, where do you want to place it? Now, in our case, and actually often, you don't actually want to change its placement. You want to duplicate it exactly where it was. So you can cancel the movement by hitting Escape or right-clicking. Now, when you do that, it looks like it's canceled the duplication, but you can see in your outline, it has duplicated it. You've got 2 objects, but it's just in the exact same place, which is what we want. So first things first, we need to name them, or else we could get very confused very easily. So you can name an object by just double-clicking it in the outliner, and then just typing in the object. The other way you can name something, I'll just show you the second way. If you select the Taurus 0.001, that's your icing object. If you're in the 3D view, where your cursor, is over the 3D viewport, if you hit F2, that's another very quick way that you can name something without having to go up to the outliner to find your object. So with our icing object selected, let's go into edit mode by hitting a tab. So we want the icing on the top, which means this bottom half of our mesh here is redundant. Don't need it. So we want to delete it. So if we just dragged over the bottom here, you can see it looks like we've selected the bottom half of our donut, but if you were to move around, you would see, oh, we haven't actually. It's only selected, annoyingly, what is facing the camera. Where there's a mesh, it's not gone through the mesh. A lot of users find this annoying. I agree. Sometimes it seems like that would be the more default one that would make more sense, but anyway, don't want to argue. So if you want to select through a mesh, you can go up to here in your top navigation, toggle X-ray. If you turn that on, it's going to enable you to see through the mesh. And now, when I drag over it, you can see that I have selected all through the mesh as I move around it. By the way, you might find it like when you're in this state, it's kind of hard to select, like it's easy to kind of accidentally select what is above it, and depending on what you've got at your end, that might have happened already. So another way to easily just look directly on the side-on of your donut is to just click one of these, like in your gizmo here, instead of just dragging around, just do a single click on either the green one or the red one, the X or the Y. And now we're in that state. You can see it's flattened it, so it's put you in orthographic mode, which actually you can toggle to at any time, just over there, which just makes it easier to just do a single, all the way through the mesh, select. All right. Okay. All right. So we want to delete that. So just hit the delete key. You get an extra option here of what you want to delete: edges, faces. You want the vertices. That's everything. And now we have, if we go back to object mode, and then let's turn off toggle X-ray as well, and you can see it's working. You got half the donut on top of itself, but as you move around, you can see you get some flickering. Now, this flickering happens, and it's actually a very common, it's actually a good warning sign to you as an artist, because it means you've got faces on top of faces, and the 3D software doesn't know which face it wants to render, right? So it's like sometimes saying it's the front face, no, the back face, the front face, and there's no understanding. Sometimes
render
you
both
faces. TV shows and like VFX or like low budget stuff, you can see something flickering in the background. I'm like, ooh, there it is, Z fighting. That's what it's called, Z fighting, or Z fighting if you're not American. So what we want to do is we want to give thickness to our icing. So we can do that with a solidify modifier. So adding another modifier, make sure you've got your icing selected, not your donut, and then here where you've got add modifier, we're going to go generate solidify. Okay, now it's made it worse. It's actually added a thickness to our mesh there, but it's actually done it the wrong way. So it's with the normals. Yeah, what is it? It's trying to put the extra bit inside the donut. So we can change that by just changing the offset here in the solidifier settings. Just drag that all the way to 1. Some of you might have actually found that it was correct before, just depending on which way your normals were. If that's the case, keep it at -1, but everyone else keep it at 1. We just want to make sure it's actually outside. Okay. Let's just increase the thickness a little bit too.
This already looks
So
good.
here, 0.025, that looks pretty good. And great, we've got what looks like a yarmulke on our donut, a perfectly straight edge little hat for our donut. So let's make this look more like icing. So the edge is wavy all the way around. So to do this is where we get into the fancy, finger magic, because you're typing lots of keys. Anyway, go into edit mode, and we can see straight away
Finger
that
magic,
we can't
huh?
see the mesh, and that's because the solidify modifier is obstructing our view. So these little boxes here, as I mentioned before, like this is to hide it from viewport. But if you want to just hide it from your edit mode, which is the state that we are in right now, the box next to it is the one that you uncheck, which means in object mode, when you're tabbed in object mode, you can still see it, but edit mode, it's temporarily hidden for you. So if I was to select one of these points here and move it down, you can see that it's working, but it would be, again, a lot of effort to go round and round and do these one by one. So we want to use that old familiar proportional fall-off tool again. So proportional editing on, and now as I move it down, let's just lower the slider way down here, and then let's pull this down. Okay, now we'll find issues. If we move to the side here, we can see the first issue we've discovered is that this is separating from our mesh here. And that's not what icing does. When it dribbles down, it follows the shape of the donut all the way down. So what we want to do is snap, let's undo it a number of times, snap the vertices to our donut underneath it, right? So for that, we need to turn on snapping up here. Okay, now there are a number of ways to snap in Blender. The default way is increment, which just means the like the grid floor there. Like if you were to just like move it around, you can see it's just snapping to the grid floor. Not helpful. But we want to snap it to the face. And now with face snapping enabled, if we move this down, we can see, let's just look here, that the bottom bit is snapping to the face, but as you might have seen, the top bits, the rest of essentially what is inside of our circle of influence with this proportional editing, that's not being affected. Only the little point that we had selected was affected. So that's not what we want either. Normally that would be enough, but in this particular case, we want to also snap individual elements too. And let's go face project. Now, when we pull this down, you should see that these are also no longer clipping through the donut. But still, we have issues. Why is that? Well, it is actually working correctly. We can see these are not going through the mesh. So why does it look like it is? The reason for that is that there's actually just not enough information here. So if we go side on, you can see, right, like we've got this point here, and then we've got another point down here, and then we've got this long stretch in between, right? So that means that this part of the donut, oh gosh, that goes that goes around like that.
Wait, but mine is still.
Also snap individual elements too, and let's go face project.
Oh,
these are right on. It's a long
Yeah.
stretch in between, right? So that means that this part of the donut, oh gosh, that goes that goes around like that is just not. There's nothing to snap it to, essentially. So what we need to do to fix this is just add more geometry. So these little vertices here, we need more of those vertices. So we can do that by actually using the subdivision surface modifier, because although it is a modifier, you can apply the modifier, and the modifier currently is adding geometry. So let's just apply it. So to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier, and then go apply. Now, if we, nothing should have changed from this view because the same information is being displayed. But in edit mode, you should now see.
Wait, but what?
Now, if we, nothing should have changed. Click this little drop down here next to the modifier, and then go apply. Now, if we, to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier, and then go.
But it, oh, because I'm in edit mode. Good to know.
Apply. Now, if we, nothing should have changed from this view because the same information is being displayed. But in edit mode, you should now see exponentially more faces, because here, where there was one face before, you can see there's now a lot more, right? 4x, okay, 4x. Okay, so now if we pull down, we should see it is snapping, and if we go into this mode, you can see that it's now conforming to the mesh in a much more snug way, because there's information there for it to use. Now this shading artifact here that we can see, this don't worry about that, we'll fix that in just a moment. But I need to show you, because I've shown you like 4 things that we need to enable for this to work. I gotta show you one more, because if I pull down and if I scroll up, you'll see something. Okay, if I was to click, we get this horrible problem here. And I've done this tutorial enough, and enough people have hit this issue that I need to call it out specifically, because it seems to be a big point that a lot of people just don't know where to go from. What's happened is if we use what's it called, the circle of influence for our proportional editing, if that is so high, it's actually high enough to reach the mesh on the other side of the donut, and then because we've got snapping, it's now projecting that, snapping it to the front, which is creating this like something that's a nightmare to fix. In fact, it's easy to start from scratch than to try to fix that. So if we want sorry, there's a lot of noise. To fix this, we need to hide the part of the mesh that we don't want to be influenced by our proportional tool, right? So to do that, there is an easy way to do it. We can actually do it very precisely. So if with this middle bit of our donut here, if I just hold down Alt and then do a left click, as I mentioned before, that selects the ring, okay? And we could do that all the way up, but actually there's a little, I don't know if it's an Easter egg. It's kind of a cool tool that not many people know about. Control plus. That will enable the select more tool. And if you use Control plus, Control minus goes the other way, you can see that it's expanding out. So Control plus will just like select the next vertex along a chain, roughly speaking.
What?
And you can see we can very quickly.
What?
I don't know if it's an Easter egg. It's kind of a cool tool that not many people know about. Control plus. That will enable the select more tool. And if you use Control plus, Control minus goes the other way, you can see that it's expanding out. So Control plus will just like select the next vertex along a chain, roughly speaking. And you can see we can very quickly select all the parts of the mesh that we don't need. Right? Very cool. By the way, if Control plus doesn't work for you because you're on a laptop or something else, select more, less. You can also do it here. Anyways, to hide this part of the mesh, it's H. H for...
What? What?
Hide. So when you can also do it here. You don't need. Right? Very cool. By the way, if Control plus doesn't work for you because you're on a laptop or something else, select more.
Wait, what? What?
Out. The Easter egg. It's kind of a cool tool that not many people know about. Control plus. That will enable the select more tool. And if you use Control plus, Control minus goes the other way, you can see that it's expanding out. So Control plus will just like...
What? Control. But that. Okay. What if I? But. Can't. But like. Well. Okay. Can I?
Like select the next vertex along a chain, roughly speaking. And you can see we can very quickly select all the parts of the mesh that we don't need. Right? Very cool. By the way, if Control plus doesn't work for you because you're on a laptop or something else, select more, less.
Ugh, don't tell me I had to. Oh, numpad plus. This motherfucker didn't say numpad, he just said plus.
You can also do it here. Anyways, to hide this part of the mesh, it's H. H for hide. So when you're in this state, it looks as though it's been deleted. It's very... Sometimes you don't know where part of your mesh, and then you forgot that you've got hide turned on. If parts of your mesh are hidden and you want to bring it back, it's Alt-H. So H to hide and then Alt-H to bring it back. Or if you can't remember it for whatever reason, you can also find it... Okay, it's underneath mesh. There we go. Mesh. Reveal hidden or hide selected. Okay, so that's the other way. But you can get my keyboard shortcut. It's in the link. It's free. Just use that and then you won't forget a lot of these handy shortcuts. All right, so now finally, after all that, after 4 different ways of and problems to explain, we can now take part of this mesh and drag it down and it will work correctly. Haha. So now we get to now finally be an artist and go like, what sort of, edge or what sort of icing do I want to make this look like? So what I'm doing here, by the way, is I'm hitting G to pull it down, and then I'm just single middle click, and then because my cursor is closest to the Z axis, it's now snapping it to the Z axis. So that's why I mentioned before that it's really handy. You don't have to think of the letter and type it in. You just go in the general direction you want to go, and then just tap the middle click of the, which is your scroll wheel, right? Middle click. It's such a weird button that you have to call it out. It's the scroll wheel button because like no other application seems to use it besides scrolling. But Blender is like, no, we're going to use it for like 90% of the operations. It's going to be middle click. But anyways, cool. As you can see, I'm not paying particularly too much attention to it, but I'm just making a wavy looking shape around it. You might also want to make some bits that go the opposite direction, right? And then maybe pull. So you've got like big shapes as well as medium shapes and some small shapes. Big, medium, small. It's the recipe for appealing design. Big, medium, and small details. But I digress. By the way, I should mention, if you're stuck, don't feel bad, because there was certainly a lot of finickiness going on with this donut here, and we're definitely in the steep part of that curve at the moment. Do make use of my Discord if you are stuck. I created it literally so that people could get instantaneous help. I don't have any other benefit for it, so it's there so that you can find help. Link is in the description, and there's like donut help chat room where you can post screenshots of your problem, and then people can help each other out. So do make use of that. Now, our shading issue here, this darkened edge, is actually going to fix itself by fixing another issue. So it's a 2 birds, 1 solution kind of problem. This 90-degree edge here for this icing not ideal. Everybody knows that a real icing would create like a rounded edge there, right?
I've been running my small art business for a couple of years now, and while I love spending countless hours in my studio making stickers and prints, I don't really want to spend countless hours trying to build a website up to sell my art. But I know a tool that can help. With just a few minutes, you can have your own custom site using Bluehost's AI tools. Write a few sentences about your business and it creates a site for you.
Shush.
So we can fix that just by adding another subsurf modifier. Because you might remember I mentioned like, yes, if you've got 3 vertices, it'll create like another vertice here and another vertice here, but it'll also like round it out. It'll pull this one back, so you end up with a rounded corner. So right here in your modifier stack, we're going to go add modifier, generate subdivision surface. Now, the order of these does matter. Okay, you want your solidify at the top and the subdivision after it. So Blender works top to bottom, and it's important it's in this way because you want the extrusion to happen first, and then in order to round that edge, it has to happen as a secondary step. So solidify on top, subdivision underneath. And whilst we're here and we're looking at the close-up, nice little profile of this edge of this icing, another issue to call out, you can see it's got this this shape that goes around. Yes, so far so good, but then it goes up. And it's like, it'll be better if it went around and then tucked in and touched the edge, because that would look more like real liquid would. So we can solve that by just changing one of the settings in the solidify modifier. It's not one of those things that you would figure out or know where it is. It's just over time you learn where some of these settings are. But essentially here, the edge data. So we want to change the edge data to say that before you do the solidify step, add a crease on the inner part right here. If we increase this all the way to 1, it now creates a sharpened edge just on that inner part there. So the rest of it is a smoothed edge, but the middle one, there's a crease, so it's making a sharp edge there. And it just gives it just a little bit more realism. Just looks a little bit closer to what you would imagine real icing would do. Okay, now for the cool bit. All right, so if you look at reference of donuts, right? Yes, you've got these little wavy bits, but where the icing is really liquidy, it'll often break off from this wave here, and it'll create a trail that goes down underneath the donut, right? It just sort of drips all the way down. Whoops, bumped the microphone. So we can do that, but not the way we were doing it before. If we just took one of these points and then like dragged it all the way down like that, there wouldn't be enough information there, right? You can see you just get this like stretched look, and it doesn't look great, okay?
It doesn't look stretched.
Essentially, we need to give it more information. And we couldn't just do it by like adding more and more subdivision surface. We need to actually like break this shape here and create a new shape that goes down. So we need to extrude. So if I select this vertice and then the one next to it by holding down shift, I don't think I mentioned it, but yeah, if you want to select 2 things at once, it's shift select. Anyways, so if we select 2 vertices like that, we want to extrude it downward by hitting E. So when you tap E, it's similar to G in that you're in a placement state now, saying where do you want to place this. So I'm going to move it down to, yeah, like about there.
Wait, what?
So if we select 2 vertices like that, we want to extrude it downward by hitting E. So when you tap E, it's similar to G in that you're in a placement state now, saying where do you want to place this. So I'm going to move it down to, yeah, like about there where I want the trail to stop, and I'm just going to do click, left click, and it's now placed it there. Now, it's hard to see it, but if I just switch to wireframe, you can see what it's doing. So it's created this breakaway shape here, an entirely new face that's completely separate to what we've got there currently. And what this means is if placed it there. Now move it. So when you tap E, it's similar to G in that you're in a placement state now, saying where do you want to place this. So I'm going to move it down to, yeah, like about there where I want the trail to stop, and I'm just going to do click, left click, and it's now placed it there. Now it's hard to see it, but if I just switch to wireframe, you can see what it's doing. So it's created this breakaway shape here, an entirely new face that's completely separate to what we've got there currently. And what this means is if we go to object mode, you can see it's not just like continuing this form here, it's pulled it down, right? Which is exactly what we want. And in fact, I want it to go even further than that. So I'm going to select those 2 vertices, and I'm going to pull it down again, and I'll do it again. And the reason I've done this 1, 2, 3 is that this detail here is important so that it conforms to the shape of the donut. Because if there's not enough, you're going to have that clipping issue that I showed you earlier. So that's pretty good. And now we're going to do it again. Originally in my earlier versions of the donut, I only did like 1 of these, but then I noticed that in the render, the final render, it's often the most interesting part of the donut. So now I'm thinking, yeah, just do it all the way around the donut. Just add the bit that looks cool. Add more of that. So here, so wherever there's essentially like a big dip is what I'm looking for. Like where the liquid would sort of build up and then like the surface tension there would be just too much and that would break away. That would go down underneath like that. And we'll do another one here, why not? Like that, and down, and down. And that's pretty good. Haha, lovely. So that concludes, finally, this heavy part of the tutorial. So if you're ready to watch the next part, hope you're not giving up. You can click there on the screen and I'll see you there. Make sure you hit subscribe as well if you haven't. A large number of you don't. But if you want to see more Blender tutorials, that's what you need to do. Self-promotion right there. Thanks, guys. See you in the next part. Congrats, you didn't give up. You made it to part 4. You clicked on the next part of the video. There's always like less viewers each video as you go down. So you're here, well done, thumbs up. As you can tell by the title of this video, we're gonna learn about sculpting. But first, I should call out, if you have a problem with your mesh now, those problems can be amplified the further you go along. So it helps to do a technical check now, make sure you don't have any problems before we move along. So to look for it, go into edit mode. And first of all, by the way, if you can't see that middle part of your mesh, it's because remember we temporarily hit it. So you can bring it back by hitting Alt-H, and that will bring back the rest of the mesh.
I think this is a good stopping spot. I think we've made good progress. We've made it through not even a quarter of the video. Not even a quarter of the video. That's wild. Am I that slow? Am I a slow loader? Nah, it's not me. But I do think that we have earned ourselves maybe a bit of repo for the rest of the time. I say let's play repo. And I'm the streamer, so I get to decide, because I am amazing like that. So it's repo time. We have to download some mods and everything, and then oh man, my ear itches. Sorry, I've had that headphone in my ear for a while. Yeah, no, I think it's repo time. I think it's time to reward anyone that is still here, who sat through that droolingness. Don't know if I'll ever be doing that again on stream. I noticed I was not talking basically at all. I was very engrossed in the video. So, yeah. Where's my mouse? There it is. Where's, why don't I have? Where's, why don't I have? Okay. Am I not? The fuck happened here? Weird. I ain't even gonna change the name of the YouTube one. Ain't like anyone sees it. But yeah, we're gonna do some repo now. Actually, it's already late. Yeah, it's already late. I'm gonna go to bed. That's the adult thing to do. I am mature adult. I really don't want to go to bed, but I'm going to. I know it's a good idea. It's a good night. Thank you for joining.